Hello, everybody. Happy Labor Day. We're back for Jedi Alliance. John Rocha is out on assignment, so today we're going to be talking about love in the most dangerous of galaxies, the Star Wars galaxy. We also have news from the Holonet and questions from you in our Mind Probe segment. Stay with us. It's going to be a great show.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Jedi Alliance.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Jedi Alliance, a celebration of the greatest saga ever told. And today, there is so much saga of love to talk about. I am one of your hosts, the internet's Mark Donica. You can find me on Twitter at Mark Donica. Today, John Rocha is out on assignment. We're going to be talking about love in the Star Wars universe, so I thought there would be nobody better to discuss this with than my beautiful wife, Mrs. Andrea Donica, is joining us in the studio for the first time today. Hi, darling.
Hi, honey.
Welcome to Jedi Alliance.
Thank you.
If the folks want, I know you're not on Twitter too much, but where can the folks find you on Twitter?
Make It Aqua.
And why is it Make It Aqua?
So I'm a big Disney fan. If you're familiar with the film Sleeping Beauty, you would know that the fairies were kind of fighting over the color for Aurora's dress. Was it going to be blue? Was it going to be pink? I tried to do Make It Blue, wasn't available. Tried to do pink, wasn't available. So my next favorite color is aqua, and so that's what it is.
And you're one of the main reasons why I'm so into Disney and so into Disneyland, and I talk about it on the show all the dang time, to the point where I added it to our non-existent drinking game. This is a family show. Have some milk. But we're gonna do a segment that we don't do very often on Jedi Alliance. We don't have a lot of new guests, but I figured. No better time than today. We're going to bring back the 5 most important Star Wars questions so the folks at home can get to know you and your Star Wars fandom. So, if you're unfamiliar, these 5 questions were started and accumulated by Maud and Ken when the show first started. So, I'm going to ask them to you. If you haven't answered these questions at home, make sure to leave them in the comments down below. Question 1. When was the first time you saw a Star Wars movie, and which one is your favorite?
So I've grown up with the original trilogy. I can't remember exactly when. It's just forever been in my memory. Mm-hmm. But what I do remember is I would religiously watch on my cassette recording Return of the Jedi. And that's always been my favorite and continues to be.
Very good. Very good. Your favorite character?
Han Solo. But Rey is coming in as a strong contender. Really like her. I just need to know her a little bit more, I think.
That's a very good answer. I mean, Han Solo is everybody's answer at one point in their life.
He was my first love.
I thought Indiana Jones was your first love.
No, Han Solo was my first love. I mean, Harrison Ford, interchangeable. Those two characters. The rugged man.
Well, let's just fix my hair there. Question 3, your favorite Star Wars quote?
It's more of an exchange. Right after in Return of the Jedi, when Leia has gotten Han out of carbonite, and he's like, "Who are you?" Someone who loves you. And the way he says Leia right after he realizes it's her is so raw and so true. And it always just struck a chord with me. I thought it was so beautiful, and it just remains in my mind as just one of the most romantic things ever.
Interesting. The something that happens a lot that all of our guests try to sort of avoid is the every line. You know, the line, everybody's favorite line, the do or do not, there is no try, etc. I love you, I know, even though we have those on our pillows in our apartment.
And hand towels.
And hand towels. Like, just as a way to break from the norm. I love it when it's not a regular quote. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that was your favorite quote. That's awesome. I'm really, really excited to learn more about you and your Star Wars fandom, even though I thought I knew as much as I did. This is going to be a growing experience.
I'm full of surprises, Mark.
No, I know. Question 4, your favorite Force power?
Sensing people and things. I think it's really cool that, Luke and Leia, they can sense a loved one when something is happening or if they're in trouble. That would be something that I would like to have. So I would know right away. I mean, I think, too, with strong connections between people, sometimes there's just this weird energy in the air where somebody just feels something or they have a dream and they know. But I would like to have that power so I could know right away and do something about it.
That's beautiful. And episode 5. Question 5, arguably the most important question of all. Would you turn to the dark side of the Force?
That's pretty good, honey.
That's
pretty
bad.
good.
That's pretty bad.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to be supportive, you know?
As you do.
Yeah.
Would you ever turn to the dark side?
I'd definitely be tempted. I think I would try and go spy on that if I was strong enough to cover my feelings, but I would never fully turn.
We need to get, there's a book about Quinlan Voss and Asajj Ventress that is about that we need to get and listen to, because that'd be a little interesting and it gets a little steamy. Well, some of these I knew. Very excited to learn new things about you and your Star Wars fandom, and hopefully the folks at home could identify with them. If you have an answer to these questions, answer them on our Facebook account or in the comments down below or in our iTunes comments, because we're always looking for fresh iTunes reviews. Leave some stars, leave some thumbs up. We love you. Let's go from here to news from the HoloNet. We've got a bunch of fun stories here, a lot of toys, a lot of children talk, and some news from Rebels and Rogue One. Last week, John talked about the international Rogue One trailer, so if you want more news about that, check out last week's episode. But first, let's go to the world of Lego. Rogue One, following the trend that started in The Force Awakens, they're doing little short videos to promote their different Lego sets. So we've got one that we're going to take a look at really quick. That's for the Imperial Assault Hover Tank. It shows how the toys are assembled and all of the pieces that come with it, and all of the things that are possible with it. And it sort of shows the imagination that you imagine that this is what kids would do when playing with it. Shows what comes with everything, how you can open it up and put it in. Lego made 5 of these, so the Imperial Assault Hover Tank, Krennic's Shuttle, one for the U-Wing, the TIE Striker, and the AT-ST. I love these. What do you think the videos help sell it a little bit more than a picture could?
Oh, absolutely. Lego with their videos are just so entertaining. And I love that it's really not language-based, just, slapstick comedy. And if anything, I would just want to see more of it. I'd like to see, for example, maybe the stormtroopers just like bumping into each other, or
bumbling stormtroopers.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything at all that Lego does is usually gold, and I'm a big fan of it. If they just put like the old 90s now, so like, yeah, the Imperial Assault Tank, like with that instead of the kids playing with it, and just showed these videos, I think you've got TV spots, internet spots, all sorts of stuff. Would you want to see something maybe a little bit longer, or do you think that's a good length?
I think it's a good length if you're advertising to kids with short attention spans. And it definitely gets the message across very, very clearly. So I think it's really well done.
I agree with you, and I like those a lot. Moving on, staying in toy news, we've got some new stuff from Hasbro, starting with the Black Series Stormtrooper helmet. Let's take a look at the development of this toy.
I'm Steve Evans, design director for Star Wars, with the new Black Series Imperial Stormtrooper helmet.
My name is Bill Raleigh. I'm the product design manager here at Hasbro on Star Wars, and this is the second roleplay helmet in our line of Black Series helmets that we were offering. We were excited to be able to bring you guys the Kylo Ren helmet last year in our Black Series roleplay, and this year with our Imperial Stormtrooper helmet, we're even more excited to bring you guys the helmet that everybody's been looking for a long time.
Everybody wants a Stormtrooper.
And it looks adult-sized.
It's a Stormtrooper, we know that. It looks slightly different.
For Rogue One, we have a slight change to the helmet. The blue stripes here on the side are actually recessed in and then painted instead of the decals that were in the classic one. For the first time, we're using a plastic called ABS.
Oh, nice.
Right. It allows us to polish it nice and shiny, so it emulates what's in the movie more accurately than ever before.
So it really looks and feels like the real deal.
And sounds. You're gonna hit this little button here on the side, and when you speak into the helmet while you're wearing it, it'll make you sound like a stormtrooper.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
I didn't do it.
Another process we have is called co-molding, where we'll actually inject 2 different kinds of plastic into the mold at the same time and get you that nice rubbery feel without it actually being rubber or extra pieces that would fall off.
Congratulations, really great job.
We're really excited. We can't wait for you guys to get your hands on them and your heads in them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's all one thing to say.
Move along.
I really hope, for those of you who are listening, there was a little disclaimer on the video that said that the sounds may not be final. I hope that they can actually replicate them. What do you think about the helmet?
I mean, as they've said, this is kind of what everyone's been looking for and wanting for so long. I think the look of the helmet is pretty good. Pretty good. For me, it's going to be a question of the sound. But I mean, with any Star Wars merchandise, the more money you spend, the better it's going to be.
Sure.
And since it's retailing for like $74.99,
Yeah, almost $100.
you know, for what it's looking like, it seems like it's what I would expect something of that price point to be. I think that if it were to be like double the price, I would want it to be a little bit nicer.
I want it to be shinier because, like, while they're trying to emulate the look of the film, it's shiny. Not shiny in chrome, but it's shiny enough and polished to where it looks professional. Whereas that's a toy. That's 100% a toy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Though I'm wondering too if maybe it was like the lighting and the place where they were recording and stuff.
Just flat lighting.
Yeah, because like there's like one point in the video where I was like, oh, okay, I see a little bit of the shine on the top of the helmet, but they had the room so dark.
Yeah.
And really matte that it's kind of hard to see any of that sheen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the lighting, maybe. Plus, those guys are pretty pale, so they need to tone things down.
And I think that's another something else to attribute to the lighting. But I think it'll only be a matter of time before we see these on like paintball fields and shooting ranges to test if people can actually shoot well with them or not. So moving on for some other Hasbro announcements. We're not going to talk about everything, but we're going to talk about some of the figures. Starting off with the Nerf line, there are going to be a couple of things from Rogue One. Let's take a look at these. There's going to be a deluxe Death Trooper gun, which has a clip that looks like it's going to be semi-automatic, which for Nerf is a little frightening. The Captain Cassian Captain Cassian Andor. It looks like it's a shotgun blast where 3 darts are going to fire out. And then the Jyn Erso, which also has a clip and shoots 1 bullet at a time, but maybe a little bit less semi-automatic. I'm always a Nerf fan. And we may not have a connection to any of the weapons in Rogue One yet, but I think after the fact, these are going to be really hard to find.
Absolutely.
Now let's go to the next. These are the 3.75 inch Jyn Erso and K2SO. They each come with a little accessory. Jyn has a large blaster of some sort that presumably fires. And K2 has a backpack of some sort. There's a lot of, they've announced some new stuff for Rebels, as well as other items from Rogue One. And then the last thing we're going to show is the Micro Machine set with the AT-AT and the Death Star. I had some Micro Machines as a kid. Did you have Micro Machines?
I did. I think I had 2 sets, but the one that I remember that I still have back at my parents' house is from Return of the Jedi. It's Chewbacca's head that opens up to being the Endor forest.
Like the Ewok village?
Yeah. And they had all sorts of things, but for me it was always like, this is so tiny. I want to play with my big action figures, so I always was afraid I would lose a piece.
Well, you have a very large collection of the Star Wars figures that I wouldn't even have dared ask you to bring. Some of the coolest stuff from when we were first dating that was one of the first things that I saw at your house that I was like, dude, because you had like original trilogy, prequel trilogy. Cause your mom's a big collector and made sure that to get 2 of everything so you could play with one and keep one under wraps.
Yes, and she even saved a couple of figures from when the movies first came out.
The Kenner figures.
Yes.
Wow.
The OG ones. So I have an original Wicket, and I think there might even be an original Yoda in there somewhere.
Oh, kick ass.
Yeah.
We got to find that. Really quickly from the chat, Tom Lister said he had the Jabba's head Micro Machines playset. I never had the Micro Machines for Star Wars. I had them for other stuff, but that was one of those things that I always wished. So of the stuff that we looked at, the helmet, the Nerf set, the Black Series figures, and the Micro Machines, which do you want to play with right now?
I'm a figures fan, so that's probably what I would go for. Granted, I would have a little bit of amusement from the Stormtrooper helmet, but I would probably tire of it very quickly. But, I would at least throw it on and be like, okay, how does my voice sound like this? Okay, moving on.
Oh, you would come home and see me just like wearing that with whatever clothes I was wearing during the day. Like I would and have like my Xbox headset over it and talking as a Stormtrooper, like if I was playing Battlefront or something. But for me, I would have to say the Nerf. I've always been such a big Nerf fan. Like I remember when Knapsack was still doing the show and we looked at the Nerf line that they were announcing for Force Awakens, they announced the Bowcaster, and he was like, I don't care how old I am, I'm getting that Bowcaster. That is the coolest thing. And it would, anytime I would try to find it, it would be sold out, or else we would have that.
I will say I'm really glad that they've made Jin's blaster.
Me too, and not in the female line of Nerf, the Rebel, which is like that. I mean, you want to talk about good enough branding for Rogue One and the Rebel Alliance and Rebel, but I'm so happy it's not like pink and purple and sparkly.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I prefer authenticity, so the fact that it's bright orange makes me go... But I mean, this is marketed for kids, not for adults.
And it can't look like guns.
Right. Especially with everything that's been going on.
Yeah. And I think it's also an answer to Raygate as well, where there wasn't anything for Ray. Nerf,
which made me mad.
Sure.
So mad.
Made a lot of people mad. And rightfully so. So let's move on from there. This past weekend was PAX West. It is a video game festival for the fans. And we had Amy Hennig, who was the creative director behind all of the Uncharted 1 through 3. Working with Visceral. She started talking a little bit more about the Star Wars video game project that we have very little knowledge about. And I want to read a couple of quotes. You should go read the article. It's really great. But just a couple that stood out to me, a couple of quotes. Authentic Star Wars can mean that we get the ATST right? And of course we have to do that too, but it's all about the new stuff, the new characters, the new story, the new locations, the new creatures, the new tech. All of this stuff has to sit authentically alongside the Star Wars that we're so familiar with. In Star Wars, you're always cutting away to the bad guys and seeing what they're doing. Meanwhile, back at the villain ranch, one of the challenges from a game design perspective is that this opens up things to the privileged observer problem. When we watch a film, we're the privileged observer, right? We're not the protagonist. Their struggle is illuminated by the things we can see that they don't, right? Suspense and all that kind of stuff. How do you do that in a game where you're supposed to identify with the protagonist and cut away to the things that they don't know? She is a master storyteller. Some of the stuff that in the Uncharted games, which I still want to play with you side by side because they're so adventurous and they're so reminiscent of Indiana Jones, which is even better. And the fact that she gets to work on Star Wars and thinking about another thing that she mentioned was in all of the Star Wars movies, it's been an ensemble of heroes.
Right.
So we're not going to get a single player experience. We're going to get a team, whether that means we're going to play as different members of the team or have sidekicks. We don't know yet. But this project is beyond ambitious. I think I don't remember when they announced it, but I think 2018 is when we're going to see this. And we know very little about it. What era do you want this to take place in?
Well, for me, it's going to either be original trilogy or what we're looking at currently with this current trilogy going forward, because that opens it up to being, oh, well, we don't know everything. So it gives them more creative license for us to explore and for things to be more of a mystery.
Yeah.
More of a surprise.
I could agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm interested. John Rocha, I know what he would say. He would say that he's interested in the Old Republic because we've only seen that in video games and we want to get as much story from that as we can. I would like to see this right after Episode 3, The Rise of the Empire. and we're getting a little bit of the tail end of that with Rebels, and we're getting a lot of in between 6 and 7 with the books. But right when the Empire starts and right when the fire is hot, let's go, let's strike. And we need to find some way to combat that. That's what I want to see. Moving on, this one's really quick. I thought it was really fun to mention. Natalie Portman was on the Jimmy Kimmel Live show, and he asked him a very, 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 very important question. Let's take a look at that clip.
Your son, you have a...
He's 5.
He's 5 years
Yeah.
old. So does he is French his primary language now?
He speaks both.
He speaks both. Yeah.
I'm English.
Has he seen you in Star Wars yet?
He has not, but he knows about it, of course.
He does, yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of a shame because when I made it, I was like, this is going to be the coolest thing one day when I have kids. I can show them. And boys, of course, are obsessed with it and know all about it before they've seen it. Then I realized I die in the movies.
Oh.
So I feel like it's kind of a scary thing to show your kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
It's bad if it scares him. It's worse if he likes it. In a way.
Yeah, so we'll have to.
You can't show him Black Swan either, I guess. Huh? That's really
Awkward.
Very reasonable reason to not show a kid the prequel franchise if you die in it. And I think any actor has that problem with any film that they do. But I wanted to ask, how early do you think is too early to show a kid Star Wars?
So before going into that, I just wanted to say, per the American Academy of Pediatrics, you shouldn't be showing kids a bunch of television until they're 2. And I see a lot of people just shoving an iPhone in front of their kid to kind of just keep them occupied. It's not good for their developmental...
It doesn't help their eyes.
Yeah, no. And also their interaction capabilities later on in life. But I think it really just depends on what movie you're showing them. I would wait to show the prequels just because... Anakin killing the younglings, that's got to be kind of traumatizing for a small kid to see.
Yeah.
I was fine growing up with the original trilogy, and so far, Force Awakens doesn't seem to be that bad, though I don't know if all fathers would want to show their kids that one and worry about some sort of ramification later on.
No, I don't. They do a
Kylo's
lot.
kind of psychotic,
They
though.
do a lot to make Kylo a bad guy.
Yeah.
They do a lot to make sure that you don't like him.
Absolutely.
Especially the act that you're talking about. and I agree. I think maybe 3 or 4. Like 3. That's like age 4 was kind of when I start to remember Star Wars anyway. So it's one thing to like put him in the clothes, dress him in a certain way, get him the action figures. So by the time it happens, or by the time you show him, it's like, oh, I know these guys. I've been playing with them all my life. Let us know when you think you're going to show your children these Star Wars films. Next, we've got a new lightning quick trailer about Grand Admiral Thrawn for Star Wars Rebels, which debuts September 24th, only on Disney XD. Let's take a quick look at that trailer.
Study the art of war. Work to perfect it. To defeat an enemy, you must know them. I will pull the rebels apart, piece by piece. They'll be the architects of their own destruction.
Absolutely love it. So, anybody who isn't familiar with Grand Admiral Thrawn will get a crash course in Star Wars Rebels Season 3. It looks like the Ghost crew will not know what's going to be happening. I think that by the end of Season 3, they're going to be in pieces. There are parts from ramifications from Season 2 that are going to take hold, like with Ezra, with Maul. And we're going to be getting a new Thrawn book. There's going to be a lot of Thrawn reinserted into the proper Star Wars canon. Do you think that his appearance will end in Rebels, or that he's going to survive somehow and exist in the world of our trilogy, and we might see him pop up in 8 or 9?
I think anything is possible what usually happens with a company when fans have been rooting for something to come back that's really popular, and finally the company puts it out there in some way. It's just the beginning of something much bigger that will continue on and kind of have a big domino effect.
And that's what it was like with Darth Maul, because after he died, there was a game that was going to be made for the Wii that got canceled, but George Lucas was interested in it personally. Darth Maul came back on Clone Wars, and now he's back in Rebels, and Darth Maul was arguably the coolest thing to come out of Episode 1, and the fans wanted him around, so they're keeping him around. So I agree. I think Thrawn is going to be the same way. Our last story and news from the HoloNet before we get to our main story. Dave Filoni, staying in the realm of animation, recently was talked to the folks down at Slash Film about Saw Gerrera and the connection between Rogue One and Rebels. It's a fantastic read. I would highly recommend anybody. It's kind of short too. It's a short interview, but he talks about what the involvement of the character means to him as the creator of the character, and what it means for Rebels characters in Rogue One. To which he said, quote, "You never know what ends up in these films," which is a wonderful way to keep teasing the audience. We've had Leia, Maul, Lando, R2, C-3PO. What characters from the movies do you want to show up in Rebels next? Because we've talked about characters in Rebels showing up in Rogue One, but who do you want to show up in Rebels?
Give me Han and Chewie. Pretty please. But I would also be interested in seeing a slightly younger Luke forming his opinions about the Empire. Because when we see him in A New Hope, he is so gung-ho to become a Jedi and do all of this, but like, you want to see how someone develops those opinions, what personal experiences he might have had that made him so against the Empire. I mean, when we start our journey in Star Wars, it's just like, these are the bad guys. But I'd say after reading Lost Stars, for example, it just kind of flips that idea, like, oh, some people were raised thinking that the Empire are the good guys. So it's really an interesting thing to see how someone develops their opinions on something like that.
Friend of the show, James Arnold Taylor, anytime we ask him, is Obi-Wan going to show up on Rebels? He's like, I would love it. I would absolutely love if Obi-Wan showed up on Rebels. And I don't think anybody's ever said Luke. So I think because they don't want to muck with what happened, but I agree. I think we should have some sort of an establishment, maybe not a direct involvement from maybe our main Jedi characters, but maybe no, not a Mandalorian either, but maybe Zeb or Chopper or somebody else to talk to him or get something happens on Tatooine, and I think that could be a fun arc. That could be a fun finale or a fun intro movie or season opener movie that they do. Yeah, I like Luke a lot. Wow, that's a great answer. And also, just because I'm such a big fan of James Arnold Taylor, I'd say our good old friend Obi-Wan. I would love to see him in some regard, since we got Yoda near the end of season 2, which was very cool to see. All right, so that was our news from the HoloNet. Thank you for bearing with us. That was a lot of news to talk about. Let's go to romance and marriage in the Star Wars universe. Now, I fully acknowledge Joseph Scrimshaw did a wonderful show while I was away about relationships in Star Wars, and this was pre-Force Awakens, so we're not going to cover the stuff that he talked about. I would recommend you go back and listen to that episode. It's a great show. Jenna Bush, Joey Ruggiero, wonderful guests talking about that. So for this, we're updating it a little bit. We're talking about the books. We're talking about the movies, The Force Awakens, and how that updated some of our favorite relationships. So let's start with one of our favorites, Han and Leia. Their marriage fell apart somewhere in between Bloodline and The Force Awakens, which was it was a very, very little bit of time passing between Bloodline and The Force Awakens. And how do you think that relationship fell apart? Do you think that Ben was in the center, or was it ultimately Han's inability to let the smuggler lifestyle go?
I think it was a combination. I'm sure that Ben was probably the greatest catalyst, but the problem is Han and Leia were having a long-distance relationship, And that's never... That usually doesn't pan out so well. And with the stress of what happened with their son and not being able to talk about it face to face, that probably had a huge effect on the relationship. Han's initial reaction to things that are too difficult is really to walk away. When Leia is physically there in front of him, then he's like, I'll come back, I'll fix this. But if you've been away from each other for an extended period of time, it's easier to just fade out into the distance. And as Leia said in Force Awakens, we went back to what we were good at.
Yeah. And talking about Bloodline and Ben, we still don't really know the relationship between Leia and Ben. We know the relationship between Kylo and Han, but there seems to be the good part of the relationship with Ben's parents has never been talked about. He focuses on the negative, which was always about Dad not being there.
Right.
But we never hear about Leia, and I'm really excited to hear if maybe he was a mama's boy and thinking about his mother is one of the only things that's keeping him moving towards the light, and the elimination of Han and wasn't as important as he initially thought, and so he has that regret, but he uses that to power himself. But then he's like, well, what did Mom think? If you haven't read Bloodline, I highly recommend it. There's not a lot of their interaction between Ben and Leia, but there's a lot about the relationship between Han and Leia, and I agree. I think Ben, I don't know how much while Han had started to believe that, yes, all of this Force stuff, all of this light side, dark side stuff is true, is real, I think he may not have had as much of a decision in having him go off with Luke. He may have trusted Luke, and he believed in Leia's decision-making, but there might have been something in the back of his head where it's like, no, like, we can't do that to him. We need to be around him, and then, yeah. But we don't know.
We don't know, and that's definitely going to be something that we see in the rest of this new trilogy, which I'm really, really excited about. I do think it's even possible, too, as you were kind of talking about before, with being a mama's boy, perhaps Ben was holding it against his father that he wasn't around for his mom. Maybe was taking her side, would see her, hurting, and getting more and more angry with his father, and not letting it just be something for his parents to deal with. That's something that kids will do. Yeah,
especially with all of the stuff that goes down to Leia directly in Bloodline that Han hears about after the fact in holovid calls, essentially FaceTime, and he really only shows up for one thing. If I was Ben, I would be scared. It's like, Mom is doing so much stuff and you're running a race? What the hell is wrong with you? Especially at 23. God, I would be listening to Linkin Park, Crawling in My Skin, or the Galaxy's version of Linkin Park. How long do you think they were apart?
Since they broke up,
they're together in Bloodline.
Right.
And then it's only like 4 or 5 years until the events of Force Awakens. So they seemed pretty all right at the end of Bloodline, but I think maybe Ben finding out about his family may have started that schism. But do you think it was 1 year, 2 years? Because it seems like a long-ish time in Force Awakens.
Yeah, that's what it seems like too. You know what? What I'm wondering is if the way we felt about it when we saw Force Awakens, it was more feeling just in general the distance that they'd had between each other since they had last seen each other really face to face. Because I'm wondering if they even had a confrontation with each other before they kind of just lost touch.
And you got to wonder at what point the Falcon was sold or was lost or whatever, or if that was the catalyst. That was, you lost the Falcon again? Like that's how I can't right now. Who knows? Like, I think maybe a little bit of domestic squabbling might be seen in episode 8, maybe. Of what anytime Ben was at home and with the family, they couldn't help but argue because there was always an issue to discuss.
Right.
Ooh, man, it's gonna be a different type of movie, that episode 8.
Yeah.
Especially if you believe the leaks, which I won't. So sticking with Bloodline, we hear a little bit about Luke, and he's mentioned to be training the next crop of Jedi hopefuls, including Ben. Do you think there could have been a relationship during this time, or just before when, like, the post Jedi era, or do you think he stuck to the prequel version of what Jedi should be? No marriage, no nothing.
I think Luke would have been open to a relationship to a certain extent, and I think it's definitely possible. We definitely saw that he was interested in the opposite sex in the original trilogy.
Girls are neat.
But if something did happen, I think he would have felt guilty about it and would have backed off eventually. Whatever ramifications of that relationship and what was left over from it remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think people really want their Mara Jade, and they really want there to be some sort of a relationship and, like, a lost Skywalker sibling or kid or whatever. I think Luke would have taken his father's turn and his mission so seriously that he'd be, and especially after everything that happened with Ben, he'd be like, I can't. So I think I agree. I think there's a possibility before the Ben incident that there may have been a date or two, maybe a swipe left or a swipe right, possibly. Who knows? Well, I mean, he uses the Force, so he can just left anyway.
I'm just imagining Tinder in the Star Wars universe, and that's a strange vision.
Oh yeah, it's terrible, absolutely awful. But yeah, I think there's a possibility of it. But ultimately, by the time he sets off on his search for the first Jedi Temple and the first remnants of the Jedi, he's super solo and not in that sort of way. And sticking around in the books, you mentioned Lost Stars earlier, and without a doubt, one of the hardest shipped couples in the Star Wars galaxy, in the most recent canon, is Ciena Rey and Thane Kyrell. How do you think their relationship stacks up to others in the Star Wars universe?
I'm not one to compare relationships, because that always gets messy.
Sure. I mean, these are fictional people.
Right, I know, but still, someone's going to get emotionally tied to it.
This is the internet, you're right.
Yes. But I will say it definitely falls in line with the rest of the Star Wars universe in that there's lots of emotional complications and drama. Will they, won't they? And
cave excursions.
Oh, yes. Lots of cave excursions. I think that it definitely is a strong relationship and one worthy of the Star Wars universe.
I agree. I think it does a lot. If there's anything that I could compare to, one of the only ones is Han and Leia, because you see that a relationship takes work, and two different people from seemingly for the case of Han and Leia, from two different parts come together and find what makes them the same. Whereas with Thane and Ciena, they start from what they think is a similar place and end in completely opposite places, but they still have those feelings and they still try. And as of right now, we don't know if there's going to be a sequel or not. I personally don't think there should be. I think they should just insert those characters into different places in the canon. Like if they go to another Empire training facility in Rebels, you get to see them as kids before they get shipped out, which would be cool. But yeah, that story, that love story is almost Shakespearean, arguably Shakespearean, and I flippin' love it. Yeah. Let's go back to the movies. In Force Awakens, Finn looks to Rey initially as a possible love interest. We love our toys. But so initially Finn looks to Rey, like, you have a boyfriend? So, like, as a possible love interest, but do you think that by the time they get to the final confrontation, that it's just a mutual respect and a deep caring, and maybe not necessarily, hey girl, what up? What do you think happened to Finn's feelings by the end of the movie?
That's difficult to say. He definitely loves her very, very strongly, whether that's romantic love or just something even more strongly, almost like family. I think that remains to be seen. She definitely deflected him plenty of times, and then when he was unconscious, she was more romantic towards him, so bummer for him.
Yeah.
But I think there's still an opportunity there. The question is, will they be around each other to nurture that, or is Rey going to be a super serious, original, devoted Jedi, or is she going to be a new type of Jedi?
I think, if anything, I think she'd be a new type of Jedi. I figure Luke, at this point, whether he was in a relationship before or not, is at the point where it's like, look what having a relationship did to my father. I do not want the same thing to happen to you, without quite as much of an understanding of what love and caring can do, even though by the time we reached Jedi, he was like, no, it's cool. I fight for my friends. And he turned out okay, but was so close.
But, that's the funny thing about all of this is that, with these original Jedi texts and rules, no, you must not love, but still you have to care for the whole world. And Luke realizes at the end, no, my love for my friends is the most important thing. It's interesting that he reverted back.
Well, it was that love for Ben and for his family that got children and people killed by the newly formed Kylo Ren. So,
you also got to be real with yourself. If you see this kid is going down a bad path, you have to have a stronger hand. And instead, he got run over by his nephew.
It's it reminds me of a Simpsons episode where they're having a barbecue and Lisa sets the roast pig free, and it just keeps going, like, through the sewer, like flying in the air, and Homer's like, no, it's still good. Like that was Luke. It was like, oh, it's just a little dark, it's still good. Didn't work out the right way. Do you think there's a love interest for any of our four major characters, and that's Kylo Ren, Rey, Finn, Poe? Really? Kylo? What if the rumors of the family tie become true? We don't know who Rey's parents are yet.
Then it's going to be super awkward like it was with Luke and Leia.
Yeah, Kylo Rey. So you ship Kylo Rey.
I don't actually ship them.
Good.
But I think he definitely has the hots for her. I don't think she reciprocates it in any way and ever would. But I definitely think he has the hots for her.
He looked at her in the torture chamber in a very interesting way. In a I'm very interested in anything that's about to happen with this person.
Yeah.
That could be any sort of a reaction. But
he's so fascinated by her, and I love how he says to her during their incredible lightsaber sequence, I can train you, please. And it's just like, wow, he really, really wants to be near this person. He wants to be as close to her as possible. He can't help but be so drawn to her.
I think he's looking at it at a very selfish way.
Oh, of course.
I think it's the fascination comes from a place of stronger than me. I'm the strongest Jedi in the world, that, like, in the entire galaxy. I don't care about my uncle and whatever. I'm the strongest Jedi. Who does this girl think she is? And then once he sees that she can do better than him, that's when he tries to bring her down to his level, saying, I can train you.
I think he's yes, he's definitely being selfish, but I think he's really impressed by her. I don't think he would have said that to anyone else. Literally anyone else on the planet.
Maybe Finn.
Or in the universe.
Could you imagine like Finn, like a little bit? I can train you. Like if the no, he's face forward because they sliced him up the back. There you go. What about the rest of our cast? Do you think there's love for Finn?
There's always going to be love for Finn. The question is who he will end up with.
We'll talk about that in our Duel of the Fates later in the episode. What about Poe Dameron? Do you think Poe is too roguish to end up with anybody?
He's so handsome. He'll end up with someone.
He'll have a nice person.
He'll have a nice person.
Let's not be specific. All right. Sticking with Force Awakens, what do you think really happened between Maz Kanata and Chewbacca? They are boyfriend and girlfriend after all. Where is my boyfriend?
You know what? I think it's just one of those things where Han and Chewie come into town, and Chewie has learned from the best flirt in the galaxy.
Lando, of course.
I think it couldn't be helped, and I think Maz is more interested in him, but he appreciates the compliments.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's maybe a couple of adventures before Han and Chewie met, because Maz has been around for so long, and Wookiees have such a long lifespan.
Absolutely,
that it's possible that that he was young and she was younger, and they met and had an escapade. Maybe they could have had something when he was maybe 100 or so, and she was 600 or 700 years old. Who knows? But that's one of the things that whenever we talk about if Star Wars made a Netflix series or if they had their own network for their own content, a Maz Kanata series where she just tells stories about her life would be amazing. And the story of her and Chewie meeting for the first time, I think, regardless, is something that we all want to see. So to sort of wrap this all up, you had mentioned that the Jedi aren't allowed to marry, and that's in the new canon. So before everything got wiped away into Legends, Luke had established in the new Jedi Order that Jedi were in fact allowed to marry, but the practice has not been carried over into the new territory yet. Do you think that we should stick to the staunch Jedi cannot get married, or do you think the new practice is something that should come into fruition?
I think it would be a good idea for them to get married. Obviously, the abstinence thing hasn't really been healthy for anybody. So I'm all about the marriage.
Well, at the same time, though it's a bad example, marriage did lead to a lot of dead kids at a Jedi temple. So there's arguments for...
No, not directly.
I'm doing this for you. All right, sweetie.
That was due to extreme manipulation.
And stress in the workplace, going down a road that one cannot follow, etc., etc. Darth Negan in the chat says Maz and Chewie are Rey's parents, which is a wonderful theory.
Whoa,
that was really good.
Oh, that's why Chewie looks at Rey all.
We got another one, Eric Bay Henderson. That's where Ewoks come from. That's brilliant. I love you folks. Remember, we do this show live every Monday. Be a part of the live chat. Join us. We'll read your comments on air. But another way that we can read your comments on air is for our Mind Probe segment. And that's where you send us questions on our Facebook page. That is facebook.com/Jedi Alliance. We just put out a call yesterday, so we're going to be running off of that thread for a little while. We post a picture every couple of weeks to get some fresh questions from you, the viewer. So make sure to like the page when Mind Probe comes around. Send us your questions. They can be silly, they can be lore-based, they can be fact-based, they can be current events, they can mix fandoms. We've answered stuff about Marvel before, Marvel and Star Wars crossing, superheroes and Disney crossing over. It's a lot of fun. So let's get started with Seth Niebaum asks, if the original Death Star takes approximately 30 years to construct, was seen in Revenge of the Sith and finished by A New Hope, Isn't it safe to assume that the much larger second Death Star must have been under construction at the time of A New Hope, and that Starkiller Base must have also been under construction during the original trilogy? Discuss. Do you want to take this first?
Well, the first thing that I'm going to say is once a company has the base plans for something, rebuilding it is going to be a much faster process. Now, by how much, I can't really tell you, but I just know that things get built a lot faster. And also because, first of all, they already have the plans. And secondly, after the first time they built it, they learned from their mistakes. And they can get more people to do it. They can tweak a few things to make it more efficient. So it can take a shorter period of time. In fact, can be a lot faster, maybe even possibly half of the time that they did it originally.
If not less, because it wasn't totally completed. They had the necessary parts. They had a couple of areas for housing. They had the throne room, arguably the most important. They had some pod bays, and the weapon was functional. That's all they needed. They needed the weapon to be functional and the control room to exist. Those were the first two things that they needed. So I agree. I don't think it would have taken another 30 years. Once they have that first one, they go back to the drawing board, but I figure they went, well, let's find a better location and build this and not tell anybody.
Exactly.
Let's do that. And in terms of Starkiller Base, no, I think it's something similar. To where now the technology existed to where now 2 Death Stars down, 3, depending on who you ask, and what version of Star Tours you read. But now that they had the technology, they could have converted... There could have been other weapons technology in development since the Clone War era. It could have been an ancient plan. Like the Death Star plans were shown in... the Attack of the Clones, for goodness sake. So there could have been other plans to convert a planet, terraform a planet, and they could have been happening for a long time. They could have found it half done and then fixed it in the name of the First Order. Who knows? Chris Fiore asks, since the Hosnian system is in pieces, what are the odds that Lando Calrissian appears in Episode 8 as the financial backer of the Resistance? He's got to have some retirement plan after the fall of Endor. A lot of people have said that they wanted Lando in the movie, and this so far is the best theory and my favorite theory of how he can be there. What do you think?
Definitely possible. I have nothing else to say, really.
No, never.
But I'd love to see Lando again, absolutely. And, yeah, this is a great theory.
And thank you, Chris Fiore.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Scott McKay asks, I know the big reveal was Darth Vader in Rogue One, but do you think Princess Leia will be in Rogue One? If this movie is supposed to end 5 minutes before A New Hope, how will the plans get to Princess Leia, then into R2-D2? What do you think?
It would definitely be cool. I am all about more Princess Leia. Maybe Carrie Fisher's daughter could have another cameo.
And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I think that we may see the transport get sent. Maybe not necessarily see Leia directly. Like we might see the hair.
Yeah, see the buns.
Yeah, we might. Got to be very careful with how you say that. But we might see her in some way, shape, or form, or we might see like R2 and 3PO getting on a transport or something. Anthony Daniels is always good for work.
Oh yeah.
Bless
that man.
Yeah, sometimes he says he needs it, but he doesn't. But yeah, I think we're gonna see some allusion to it, just so that there can be, excuse the pun, a New Hope, because presumably it's gonna end pretty grisly for this band of rebels.
Yeah.
That's it for a Mind Probe segment. Remember, you can go to our Facebook page at Jedi Alliance. Like us. We post this prompt every week and a half or so. Ask your questions. We'll ask them on the show, and we'll talk about them. It's a great time. I love this segment. But we go from there to Duel of the Fates. Love that music.
It's beautiful.
The second greatest thing to come out of episode 1. So last week's question, as posted by John Rocha, who do you want to see play Princess Leia if Disney were to do a standalone film? I love this question. I'm really sad that I wasn't in on it, but who do you think would be your choice?
I want an unknown. I think that's what makes a lot of the Star Wars films so great is that, yeah, some of these actors have done some good body of work before they did it, but not a lot of people knew who they were ahead of time and launched their careers. And I think that's great because the problem with known actors and actresses is that, you know, there's all of these expectations associated with them before they even come into the casting room. So, yeah, I'd like to see a brand new person, fresh face, or Carrie Fisher's daughter. If she wanted to do it and she had the acting chops, I don't know.
Billy Lord.
That's
is her
right,
name.
Billy.
Yeah. Because you'd had the audiobook of
Yes.
Carrie Fisher's stuff. Yeah.
Wishful Drinking and Shockaholic. I greatly recommend them.
They talked a lot last week about a recent interview that Carrie Fisher did. So we're big fans of her in general on the show. So go check those books out. I agree. I think an Unknown would be great. I really liked some of the answers that we got on Facebook. We actually had 2 people say Emily Blunt, which I think is a pretty good choice.
Yeah.
But they're already using her for Mary Poppins. Disney's already using her for Mary Poppins, so I don't think they would want to cross the streams like that. But I agree, like Alden Ehrenreich, he may have been in Hail Caesar, but apart from that, he wasn't in anything too huge. So use somebody who's sort of fresh and emerging. Albert Justice Albanese says, Emily Blunt is a good choice, but I think Emma Watson has the perfect face and the right attitude to play Princess Leia. And if they do it before, when she's trying to be regal and she put on the British accent, you're halfway there. Jace Christensen said Scarlett Johansson. If Marvel is going to be dumb and not give her a standalone Black Widow film, let's see her kick some ass in space as the princess. I like that pick as well. Jonathan Childress says Meryl Streep all day. JK. Probably Carrie Fisher's daughter. It would make the most sense. Billy Catherine Lord, of course. But yeah, I think Meryl Streep could do anything, so why not?
She can, but if you're going to cast Meryl Streep, you might as well just have Carrie Fisher
I agree.
reprise.
I agree. So that was our question last week. This week's question, I thought it would be fun. Let's talk about this love triangle in the sequel trilogy. Looking forward to the end of the sequel trilogy, we're going to take a look at the current love triangle. Who will Finn end up with at the end of episode 9? Rey or Poe Dameron? That lip bite won for nothing, I'll tell you what. But yes, let us know. We're going to post this tomorrow on our Facebook page. That is facebook.com/Jedi Alliance. Let us know what you think. If you have any other ideas, post it in the comments. Also, make sure to visit us on iTunes, leave a review, leave stars. Remember, 5 stars if you're nasty. The rest of the ratings don't work, so you got to do 5 anyway. Yeah, that's our Duel of the Fates for this week. Make sure to head to it. Andrea, we just did an episode of Jedi Alliance together.
Yay!
Wasn't that pretty good?
Yeah,
Did you
it
have
was
fun?
great. Yeah, I did. I'd like to come back if you ever want me to come back.
I'm gonna have to talk about it with the studio. See if this worked out. See how the ratings do.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it's a studio thing. I personally, I would absolutely love it for you to come back. We gotta ask this. I'm kidding. You're gonna come back. Goodness. Just luckily your work schedule worked out today.
Yeah,
I
no
got a chance to
kidding.
get you in. So any final thoughts on love and romance and marriage in the Star Wars universe?
That's a really big question, Mark. I wasn't prepared for this.
Well, just final thoughts on what we were talking about today. Anything you would like to leave the fine folks at home with before we go?
Well, one thing I just wanted to say, in Force Awakens, I loved the initial scene between Han and Leia when she gets off of the transport and they're looking at each other. Just has all the feels.
I think also their departing, their final departing with the love theme playing and crying. Like that was the scene that was getting people in the trailers. Just like, oh, they're holding each other. It's great. And without even knowing what was happening. Goodness. Yeah, I think we haven't gotten... The score for marriage in Star Wars is pretty interesting. We have Owen and Beru, which they stayed together till the end. Through the fire and flames, they carried on. Anakin and Padme, we know how that ended. And...
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
No, so reversing really fast back to when Natalie Portman was saying she didn't want to show her kids. Well, the other thing too is, hey, this is not how you should have a relationship with someone. You should treat women with respect, not strangle them and then drop them onto the ground.
Oh, sure. While they're pregnant with your children.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's not good.
No, that's not fun. Not a good time. We also have the Organas.
That's true.
The only other married couple in the galaxy in the prequels. And seemingly Bale always mentioning his wife at the drop of a hat.
But you know what? At least he respects her.
Oh, of course. No, they both run Alderaan with not with the opposite of an iron fist.
Right.
They run it very respectively.
Warm arms.
Yeah, with arms wide open. Sorry. Not what I expected to end the episode with. But yeah, there's plenty of room for romance. That's half of what this series is based off of, is those old serials, whether it be the dashing hero, and seeing that evolve in a new way is breathtaking. And I'm excited to see. We got a lot of new characters coming in episode 8. Some people who are testing on-screen relationship stuff. We don't know what kind of a relationship, but with John Boyega, with Daisy Ridley. So there's a lot that we're going to be seeing coming forward. We don't know what's going to come out of Rogue One, if Jyn is going to stay a strong, independent woman the entire time, or if there's going to be some sort of wartime romance in there as well. There's a lot in this realm that sort of, I think Lost Stars expanded our look on that as well, that love can exist in a world like Star Wars. I absolutely loved. Go ahead.
What about for BB-8?
Another sphere droid.
Do you think BB-8 gets in between 3PO and R2-D2 from time to time?
Ooh, I mean, he kind of did. Like, he spent a lot of time with 3PO, and then once R2 woke up, he's like, who's this kid? Hey! Because we talk about R2 being a grizzled war veteran. Just like, who's this little spherical droid? I don't know. He spits a lot. Why not? The oil slick.
Oh.
It's like chew. It's like chewing tobacco. But yes, all sorts of love here in the Star Wars universe. Andrea, before we go, where can the folks find you online if they want to talk to you further about this subject or other subjects?
You can find me on Twitter at MakeItAqua. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm still listed as Andrea Judd. I do have a Facebook page. I do a lot of theater, actually, so you can find my theatrical page.
And we're still trying to figure out a way to do the Star Wars the Shakespearean Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's just a term of like finding rights and being able to actually perform it.
Yeah.
But that's
maybe on the sly.
Maybe for donations. It's just a free exhibition, and we'll do excerpts from it as a fundraiser.
Definitely done plenty of that in my day.
So make sure to stay tuned to the Andrea Judd Facebook page and Make It Aqua on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Mark B. Donica. You can follow the network at the Popcorn Talk. Also, I do a lot of shows for our sister site, AfterBuzz TV. And later tonight on the Popcorn Talk Network, we're going to be staying in space for Video Game Movie Anatomy. We're going to be talking about Wing Commander from 1999, the video game franchise, of course, starring Mark Hamill. So if you want to look into that film, you have plenty of time to watch it now. Rent it right now on iTunes. It's only a couple bucks. Join us live. Next week, John Rocha will be resuming his role as co-host, but I humbly want to thank my beautiful wife, Andrea Judd, Andrea Donica now. You confuse me with the pages, for joining me on this episode about love and marriage in the Star Wars universe. But thank you for watching and or listening to Jedi Alliance. You can visit popcorntalknetwork.com to find a nice list of all of the past episodes of Jedi Alliance and links to both YouTube and iTunes. Please follow us on Twitter at Jedi_Alliance and Facebook at Jedi Alliance for all of the us-related news. This has been Jedi Alliance on the Popcorn Talk Network. We talk movies. Thank you for listening, because many Bothans died to bring us this information.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.